present to people a kingly God. Do not compromise on God's instructions. Do not dilute what God has said we should do. But at the same time, let us present a God who provides righteousness. The saving righteousness of God for the sinners. The saving righteousness of God for those who have missed the mark. And also the transforming righteousness of God. This is stewardship. The God who is Lord and the God who offers righteousness. I'm thankful and grateful for the presentation of Dr. Tayo this morning. My presentation today is topping up instructions. I have another announcement. Some of you have asked me that they would like to receive the PowerPoints. Let me say it this way. I would like you to prepare your own PowerPoints. That's why I have given you the booklet. But if still you want the PowerPoint, I will give it to you. I have already given. Where is my friend? What is his name? His name is Jackson. Jackson is here. Jackson, I have sent all the PowerPoints to him. At some point, I would like him to come here and tell you where you can get the PowerPoint. Because he told me he's sharing the PowerPoint somewhere on some kind of a platform. Okay? I don't know. You will come here, Jackson, because now it is your responsibility. It is his responsibility to tell you where to get the PowerPoint. But once again, I will reiterate what I've said. I would prefer that you prepare your own PowerPoint because you will put the thing in context. And this is much better than just recopying and delivering what I have presented to you. Because you know Nigeria like no one else. You know your district like no one else. Make the effort of adapting to reach the people in your district. Topping up instructions. In this presentation, I'm discussing how the local leadership, I don't know if you have paid attention to my presentations, my focus is on the local church. Do you know why? Because if it is not happening in the local church, it is not happening. I will repeat that. If it is not happening in the local church, it is not happening. It is only a good plan. It is only a great strategy unless it happens in the local church. It is not happening. That's why I value your ministry. That's why we value your partnership. Because without you, we can't build an army. Without you, we can't create the culture of faithfulness, the culture of partnership that we want to see in God's church in this generation. Okay? This presentation discusses how the local leadership is updating the knowledge of members in view of influencing participation in giving. Are we together? Yes. I would like to refer once again to our motto. Now we are my brother. I enjoy seeing you here but at the end, your neck will have a serious problem. Thank you. Okay? You can even go there and then come back. Yes, please. Okay? This is the idea. The model, we have talked about holding convictions. We have talked about following the figures. And today, I will share with you about the two primary interventions if you want to make a difference in your local church when it comes to members' faithfulness and partnership. These two primary interventions, you can see them at the middle of the square section. At the top, topping up instructions, and at the bottom, cultivating personal connections. This morning, we are dealing with topping up instructions. In the afternoon, we will deal with cultivating personal connections. Like that, you will have quite a complete and comprehensive understanding of the model, how to mobilize partners, how to create a culture of faithfulness. When I'm talking about topping up instructions, I've said it, I'm repeating it now, it refers to how the local leadership is updating and refreshing the knowledge of members in regard to giving. Let me read with you two texts that speak about the importance of knowledge. Why am I highlighting these two texts? Because there is a new trend in the Adventist church, and quite unfortunate trend that people are not valuing knowledge, biblical knowledge, the way it was in the past. What do I mean by that? There is a new trend in the Adventist church where people are equating spiritual experience to what they feel, to the emotions of the time, to what they experience, the good feeling, instead of knowledge. I was reading my Sabbath school lesson for yesterday, where this man who came to Jesus and asked about the law, the commandment. And Jesus says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, yes, emotions, feeling, all your soul, and then all your mind and all your power. If Adventism drift away from this aspect of understanding, knowledge, Adventism is in danger. It's true. Probably we have focused too much on the cognitive side of religion. Probably we have focused too much on understanding the Bible, but there is not too much in that. We need to experience the Bible. We need to experience something in worship. There is place for feelings and emotions, but these need to be informed by the Bible. These need to be informed by biblical truth. Anywhere, any place where there is this trend of replacing the Bible, the preaching of the Bible, the teaching of the Bible with just feelings and emotions, we are in big trouble. Listen to what is written here in Hosea chapter 4, verses 5 and 6. You stumble day and night, and the prophets stumble with you. So I will destroy your mother. My people are destroyed from what? From lack of knowledge. Don't tell me that there is no place for knowledge. Don't tell me that there is no place for teaching in the Adventist church. Because you have rejected knowledge. I also reject you as my priest because you have ignored what? The law of your God. I also will ignore your children. Are you getting it? Knowledge. We should impart knowledge. And the text is saying something very dramatic. It says, when we ignore the law of God, God will ignore our children. In other words, we will lose our kids. The future generation is threatened if we neglect knowledge and the law of God. Let me read another passage. This time from Romans chapter 10, verse 14. How then can they call on the one they have not believed in? And how can they believe in the one of whom they have not heard? Today we are tempted to make our religious experience based on what we feel, but the Bible says, and how can they believe not in the one they feel? No, in the one of whom they have not heard. And how can they hear? Without someone preaching to them. Topping up instruction. At the end, I will read a quotation from Sister White speaking about the limitation of knowledge. But knowledge is core. Knowledge is key if we want to grow people in faithfulness, if we want to grow people in partnership with God. Let me share what a gentleman of the name of Smith and others have discovered. When it comes to why people are not supporting the church, why people are not giving to the church, listen to what they said. There exists a clear connection between instructions and congregational giving. Smith and others identified two situations: unperceived need and normative ignorance that impact giving negatively. These are the two words missing in your document. Oh, what do we mean by unperceived need? People fail to support the church. People fail to support the church when they do not see the need of the church. Absence of knowledge, absence of understanding. But I strongly believe that in our context, this is not a major problem. People see the need. People understand the need. But there is the other one, where Smith is saying there is normative ignorance. What is that all about? Normative ignorance, we can explain it in a simple way. People do not know that giving is part of our spiritual responsibility. People do not understand that to be spiritual is to be a giver. People do not understand that to be a believer is to be a giver. I will tell you something. Have you heard about I will go? Yes. When you think of I will go, what do you think about? What do you think about? That you should teach, that you should witness, that you should preach, that you should share. It's very rare when we say I will go that people think that we should give. You see the problem? This is the problem that has crept into Adventism. When we say one member, one soul, what do we mean by that? Are we only thinking of doing mission, or are we also including supporting mission? This is the challenge today, and this is where the normative ignorance is located. Many people, in many places, they feel that the US should give the finance and we will baptize. I will repeat that. That the finance should come on the other side, but that our responsibility is preaching and witnessing and sharing. This is the big problem today. Normative ignorance. I have served in a division where I have observed that seriously. And unfortunately, this normative ignorance, either we talk about it or we think about it, it is deep rooted in us. That we are not called to give, we are only called to preach. This is what we need to change. That's why you are here, to help us address this issue of normative ignorance when it comes to giving, when it comes to managing your personal resources. Let me read this with you. I've mentioned this study done by McIver in 2016. The study is about the tithing practices among Seventh-day Adventists. And when he interviewed people, asking them why sometimes they do not return their tithe, you know, one of the themes that emerged in this study is forgetting. You can say, but how is it possible? But it's true. People are saying, listen to that, people are saying we are not constant, we are not regular in our giving because we forget. And when we remember, the money is gone on something else. This is a big problem, but at the same time, this is a problem that can be easily solved. If you forget, what is the solution? Someone needs to remind you. And this is where this idea of providing instruction, recurring instruction, come into place. If we want to help people not to forget, we need to top up instructions regularly. Listen to what, in one of my studies, one pastor explained that to me about topping up instructions. He said, so I observed that a properly taught member, theologically convinced, would begin giving offerings. That is observed when a member says, now that I understand biblically why I should give, and they will begin to make it in less time. That was his experience in his pastoral district. I'm sure there are many around here in this hall, in this room, that can share the same thing. After helping people to understand their responsibility, the members say, oh, now I understand. Now I know. And the people change the course of their conduct and behavior. When we talk about topping up instructions, there are three things that come into play. The first one is instructions do not have to be brand new messages. I will repeat that. Sometimes we feel that we need to come each time with something new. No. Topping up instructions mean that you are repeating sometime the same thing. There's no problem to repeat. The art of education is to repeat. And you will be surprised that you are repeating, but for many people, hey, first time I'm hearing that. But one month ago, you said it already. My pastor, he will always say something. In any of his sermon, he will try to include three things in his appeal. An appeal to witness, an appeal to give, an appeal to fellowship. And that is his way of bringing that constantly to the church members. He will preach different sermons, different topic, but then he's always finding a way to bring that into what he's teaching. This is topping up instructions. Another thing about topping up instructions, some contextual application are made to existing truths. This is topping up instructions. You have told people probably 5 years ago, 10 years ago, when they came into the church, but circumstances are evolving. Situations are evolving. And we need to top up instructions. And topping up instructions assumes the existence of prior knowledge. I will tell you something. Research has clearly shown that people who are faithful in the church, in returning tithe and offerings, are those who were taught about tithe and offerings when they were being prepared for baptism. Probably you haven't get it. People who are the most faithful in tithe and offerings are those who were taught about tithing and offerings when they were being prepared for baptism. Those who were not taught about tithing and offerings when being prepared for baptism, even after being taught about tithing and offerings after baptism, only a small portion will be faithful and will partner with God. The problem is big, and this can explain the situation in which we are today. In most of our evangelistic campaign, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we just brush rapidly on this issue of tithing and offerings. Or sometimes we don't even address this issue of tithing and offerings. We don't have time, but sometimes out of fear, we don't address that. Fearing that people will run away. And we convince ourselves that later on, we will teach them about that. Wrong. Completely wrong. And Sister White has many passages saying that when you are teaching people the biblical truth, when you are leading people to accept Jesus, make sure that they understand the principles of tithe and offerings. But if we neglect that during this time period, you can do it later, but the result is not the same. The more a church neglects teaching about tithing and offerings before baptism, the weaker the church will be in faithfulness and partnership. You will have a big church, probably, but a weak church. Topping up assumes the existence of prior knowledge. You can't top up on something that does not exist. And what should exist is in the preparation of prospective baptismal candidates, there should be sufficient education provided in regard to stewardship. Let me continue and tell you what I have learned about the importance of topping up instructions, repeating instructions, the profile of the membership. In many places, especially on our continent, the membership is a young membership. When I say young, in two ways. People are young in age and people are young in the church. They don't have this Adventist culture. The Adventist culture is not there. In my home division, which is now approaching 5 million members, in Southern Africa, Indian Ocean Division, 5 million members. In 2003, when this division was established, there was not 2 million members. This tells me that in 20 years, the membership of the union, of the division, has grown by more than 100%. This means that there is a completely new generation of people joining the church that don't have this Adventist culture of giving to the church, or they have a different understanding of giving coming from their former churches. Unless we are intentional, these new people coming into the church, they won't learn about the Adventist understanding of stewardship. Topping up instructions. Church entry process. I have talked about that. In many places, people are entering the church after 2 weeks. After 1 week. And this entry process has weakened the church in some way if people were not adequately prepared before these 2 weeks of campaign. And there is something else also that I don't know, I haven't asked the question for Nigeria, but I know for other parts of Africa, the presence of offshoot movements. lot of offshoots movement. And one of the truth that these offshoot movement is attacking is the truth about tithing. Tithing is at the heart of the attack of these offshoot movement on the church. How do we address that? How do we address that if we are not intentional in teaching, in topping up instructions? 1 Peter chapter 3 verses 15 and 16 has this to say, "But in your hearts revere Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. But do this with gentleness and respect, keeping a clear conscience, so that those who speak maliciously against your good behavior in Christ may be ashamed of their slander." Here Peter is saying we should be able to justify our beliefs and practice. How are we helping our members to justify their practice, their stewardship practices in the church? You know, as long as no one is attacking the stewardship beliefs and practices, people will keep practicing it. But the day that someone is questioning your church member, hey, this is foolish, this thing of returning tithe. How do you establish that from the Old and the New Testament? And the members start, it starts some doubts in the mind of the members. And very rapidly, people drift away because they are not well settled in the truth. You have come here because we want you to be settled in the truth. But there are many other books. I can recommend many of the books. I'm thinking of two books. One is called Stewardship Root from Andrel Rodriguez. This book is free for you on the Stewardship website. There is another book, God Will Provide, by Felix Cortez. This book is free for you on our website. Learn how to defend the stewardship message of the Adventist Church. And make sure that your members know about it, because they need to defend that today. Because this truth is seriously under attack. Because the devil knows stewardship has helped this church to grow. And if the devil can hit that pillar of our faith, he will prevent us from growing and growing faster. When we talk about topping up instruction, there is a difference between education and promotion. In many local churches today, we talk about giving. We appeal to giving, but only in the form of promotion. What do I mean by that? Our ladies have to go for the Tri-Union Congress. Let us help. We are talking about giving. We are talking about generosity. But it is in the form of promotion. We need to enlarge the church. We need a new roof for the church. We need to do some repairs in the church. Let us be generous and give. There's nothing wrong to say that. But it is still promotion. It is still promotion. It is event. It is project oriented. There is a place for that. But when we are talking about topping up instruction, we are saying education should be primary. Education should be primary. Let me expand a little bit on that. In strategic persuasion, this is what we do sometimes. We try to persuade people using all types of good arguments, but in strategic persuasion, theology is secondary and strategies come first. Sometimes, let us be honest, sometimes we even use some form of manipulation to put some pressure on people to give instead of explaining. It takes a longer time. It takes a longer time to educate people. It may be easier to just promote when we have an event, but promotion won't bring you far. Let me say this way. Promotional giving depends largely on the strategic persuasion. Education concentrates on the biblical rationale for believers to be givers. Are we together? I will tell you one thing. Even if you know an argument can motivate people to give, but if it is not, I will say it this way, if it is not biblical, don't use it. Don't use it. There is a temptation from us stewardship leaders, from us pastors, to craft some arguments that is not solidly based on the Bible. We use these to convince people to give, and the end justify the mean, but it is not really biblical. Be careful, because this can backfire on you. The day that someone questions, they say, this is not biblical what you are teaching. It's true, people were motivated to give by what you have said, but this teaching not being biblical will put you in trouble on the long run. Let me push forward. The content of instruction. You know, stewardship, I was blessed by the presentation of our dear Dr. John Sotunza. Yes, because he is helping us to understand the comprehensive nature of stewardship. Stewardship, I will skip and say this. Stewardship is my all in response to God's all, isn't it? This is stewardship. But as a department, we cannot focus on everything. You as a church pastor, make sure that stewardship in your local church covers all aspects of life. But us in the stewardship ministries, we have our niche. Our area of specialty is financial stewardship. But stewardship is my all in response to God's all. Why do we in the stewardship ministries, why do we focus on finances? There are some reasons for that. One of these reasons is practical reason. A department cannot cover all aspects of life. Secondly, the Bible and Jesus provide extensive teachings about money. Thirdly, money or riches compete. with God for lordship. Fourthly, giving is an essential element of worship. And the Adventist Church, our message is about worship. We cannot say, hey, we preach the three angels' messages, which is about what? Worship, without talking about giving money. That's why the church has found it important to have a department to focus on giving as a form of worship. The church has a global mission that requires financial partners. I will wrap up 3-4 more minutes now. There are 3 elements of instructions. I call it the 3-legged instruction model. If you want to grow your members in faithfulness and partnership, invest in these 3 things. Firstly, educate them about generating resources. Secondly, educate them about managing resources. And thirdly, educate them about giving. Traditionally, our church has done relatively well when it comes to teaching about giving. But these first 2, in most places, have been neglected. If we want to grow people as faithful givers, we should not only talk about giving. We should tell people how to generate resources, and we should tell people how to manage resources. Because many times people fail to give, not because they are not convinced about giving, no, because they are either making nothing or their finances are in a mess. When we adopted this 3-legged instruction model, the focus is on the well-being of church members, improving believers' life conditions, just like what it was in the book of Acts. And it is also about following Christ's method. You know Christ's method? What is it all about? Christ was doing what first? Attending to the people's need and then begging them to follow. And this is what strategy we need to do. We need to use in the church. Let us do everything possible to attend to people's need of learning how to manage their finances, of growing their finances. When we have attended to people's need, it becomes easier for people to respond in gratitude and to support God's church. This is what we call the principle of reciprocity. The principle of reciprocity. You have attended to my needs. In gratitude, I support this organization. There is another concept in the literature that leads people to give. We call it social income. I give to this institution. I give to this church because this church is providing services for me and my family. I will stop here because my time is over. No, later probably I will pick a little bit more. But for now, I will stop here. I just want this to stick in your mind. Instruction. Topping up instructions. What will make people become faithful and partner with God is not more feeling, is not more emotions. What will make people to grow on the long term as faithful partners is how are we educating our members. Let us be educators of stewardship. May God bless you. Amen.